What's interesting about Atomic Heart is I remember it being like really hyped up prior to its initial release. The trailers, they looked fantastic, the game looked polished, the combat looked fun, it had a really cool premise, and then it launched and I kind of just totally forgot about the game. I also remember it getting like fairly mixed reviews too, and being someone who prefers to go for 100% on achievements for the Xbox or trophies for PlayStation, I remember hearing from many of the websites that I use that Atomic Heart was a nightmare completion. It was riddled with some game-breaking bugs in terms of collectibles, multiple playthroughs were needed, and one website that I use often just actually gave up completely making guides for it, and that's also nothing to say for the performance issues some people were having with the game. So after all that, and just with how busy I was at the time when it launched, I kind of just pushed Atomic Heart to the back of my mind. I wrote it down in my little backlog section in Discord for like a rainy day, hoping for like more fixes, better optimization and performance, and yeah, I kind of just left it at that. Fast forward to the end of August 2024, Atomic Heart pops up in my Twitter feed. It's leaving Xbox Game Pass on the 30th, and I'm like, okay, if I want to dive into this game, it's now or never, otherwise I probably won't ever touch it or play it. So after 1.5 years since its release already, I'd actually forgotten most of the issues that had potentially plagued the game, most of what the people had said online, and I thought, okay, I have just over 1 week to smash out a 15 to 20 plus hour playthrough of this game, or I just might as well delete it from my backlog because it's not going to be free to play anymore on Game Pass. So I am quite happy to report that I really enjoyed my Atomic Heart playthrough, and I am very happy that I gave it a fair shot. So, without further ado, Atomic Heart. Let's talk about it. Ladies and or gentlemen, welcome back or welcome to the channel. My name is Xeno and this is my living legacy. If you like what I do here, just talking about the games that I play and experience, remember to like the video so YouTube knows it doesn't totally suck, and subscribe if you're interested in future content. This will be my complete video on Atomic Heart. I've already made a first impressions video prior, and while I will piggyback off that impressions video for some talking points, you don't need to watch it to fully enjoy this video, though it will help a little bit. As always, I like to discuss games in their full capacity, so spoilers for story, characters, events are inbound as well, so you have been warned. Alright, so let's TLDR for those that have small attention spans, who click off the video in the first few minutes. If I had to be a critic, after about 20 plus hours of a playthrough, I'd give Atomic Heart a solid 8 out of 10, or like a 4 out of 5. Speaking of critics, the game actually sits at an overall 70 on Metacritic, which I think is a little low, personally. The PC scores are higher, which is surprising to me, considering I had quite a few issues on PC, especially performance-wise, especially this far out from the launch date, so this is the best version it could basically be. But I also played it on the Xbox Series X, and it was flawless on console, absolutely perfect. I'm looking through some of the pros and cons that some of the reviews have had, and I can see where most people have landed, but some of these reviews go as low as to say like a 4 out of 10, saying stuff like there's all style, there's no substance, which I just heavily disagree with, or another review that has like remarking on the 15-hour approximate runtime, it's like not long enough for some reason, which I just think that's a major issue in this gaming industry these days, people complaining about the length of video games. And don't get me wrong, the game's got some issues, and I can definitely see parts of the game that will not wholly resonate with everyone. But I think for the developers, which is Mundfish, their first major AAA style game ever, I like to think this game punches above its weight a little, which I think I mentioned in my impressions video. And I found it to be a very enjoyable experience, especially by the end. And I'm just really happy that I played it, and I very much look forward to a sequel in the future as well. Okay, so as mentioned, 20 plus hours playthrough for me. So this is one of those times though where I'm a little bummed out. I didn't have more time to spend in the game world. As I was on a ticking time bomb because this game was leaving Game Pass, I didn't get to fully explore the world as much as I would have liked, upgrade all the weapons and the skills, try out maybe new combinations, dive into more of the secret facilities and underground complexes, listen to more of the audio logs, and just get a richer backstory in general. I really wish I had just a few more hours to play this game, because I really did enjoy Atomic Heart and the experience that it gave me, especially just because I was having fun. I can even double down on that notion because the game's got 2 DLCs that follow each of the game's endings, which I won't be able to play now, which is also reading through the synopsis. They just sound really interesting to me, especially because the story really picked up at the end with all the twists and the turns, and honestly, I kind of really want to know more. So let's start at the beginning. What is Atomic Heart? Just in case you haven't seen my first impressions video. It is a first-person shooter mixed with some very minor RPG-like mechanics, which is pretty much normal these days. Your main character is Major Sergei, or codename P3, and you work for Dmitry Sezhnov. He's like a brilliant scientist who's created this like insane AI technology which can merge into the human brain, allowing you to control machines and robots. He's about to revolutionize the world, and just days before the big event, which is called Collective, goes live, as par for the course, something goes terribly wrong. Bad people are involved, the AI goes rogue, all the machines murder everyone. Total shocker, definitely didn't see that coming. And it's your job to like stop it or find out what's happened, bring the people that are responsible to justice, etc. You're armed with a special glove. It's made of like some of the new AI tech polymer, which gives you access to like different elemental skills. It's very Bioshock style, which I've mentioned in my impressions video. You've got electricity, which is the default power, which is always available to you. You have telekinesis, which is very overpowered and very fun. You have shielding, you have freezing. The glove also has like an AI inbuilt into it called Charles. He's your companion through the game. I really enjoyed his commentary on everything, as well as the back and forth that he has with P3. You can also use the glove to loot everything in the game by holding it up. You suck up like all the materials and objects into your inventory. As mentioned in the impressions video, this was such a small little design choice that I got like completely fixated on. Like every single room and area, I was holding my glove up, scanning the environment, seeing enemies through the walls, what's lootable, the chests you can open, the drawers you can pillage, and I would just go collect everything that wasn't nailed down. If it was glowing, I was collecting it. I absolutely love this little feature. It was just a very addicting gameplay loop overall. Weapons-wise, you start with a giant axe. You can get all kinds of different blades, spiked weapons, blunt weapons, things that like slice up the robots and the biological enemies that you face. I actually used the axe as my default melee weapon for a very long time into the game, actually. I really enjoyed bringing down like this very meaty axe swing on enemies. It was a lot of fun. More so when I tried different melee weapons, like I tried a speed melee weapon called the Pashit, which was like faster and it was for quicker strikes. Didn't quite enjoy that. I finished on what was probably most people's favorite weapon. I'm probably going to butcher the name of this. The Zvezdoshaka? I'm just going to put the word on the screen. I don't know how to pronounce this. It's like this insane melee weapon that when you upgrade it, it launches blades at enemies from afar at the cost of your enemy. It was just a powerhouse weapon. It shredded everything. It shredded bosses. It was so much fun. Gun-wise, you start with a shotgun. I use this as the default gun just for the whole game because it's just that good. Like you can upgrade it, elemental rounds, fire, shock, ice, and any game with a good shotgun always gets my attention. Doom's the same thing. I also used the assault rifle style weapon. That was fun for just unloading like full clips into bosses from afar. I got a Fat Boy, which is like a rocket launcher nearer to the end of the game, which became a fairly default weapon again for the bigger enemies and bosses that you face. Because again, rockets, always a fun thing. I can never say no to like a good rocket launcher in a first-person shooter. There's also energy weapons, weapons that can take up your energy meter that's in the bottom right-hand corner, which can be restored over time with melee attacks or just naturally restores. The first energy weapon you get is a little pistol called the Electra. I think I mentioned that in the previous video. I used it a fair bit, but I ended up actually preferring melee weapons and just automatic weapons overall. It got a lot better when upgraded though, I will admit, because it has like a charge shot that can like insta-kill smaller enemies. It's got AoE damage, it stuns robots. Higher difficulties, I can actually see this being far more useful, especially because of the ammo economy. I tried briefly the Railgun, another energy weapon, towards the end of the game, which is really cool, but again, it took up a lot of space in the inventory to manage, and you got a couple of shots off. So actually, speaking of inventory, the game sadly does have a limited inventory system. Now, you can keep picking up items even when you're full, like health items, ammo, materials, and you can keep looting, and it goes into your storage that you can, like, you know, take out from like save points around the map and the levels, but you're only allowed to carry a certain amount of items on yourself otherwise. So it meant I kind of had to focus on like one melee option, 1 to 2 automatic options, and if there was room, maybe an energy weapon, which, as I just mentioned, I kind of ended up ditching in the end, because every slot is an individual ammo slot as well, and then health packs that you get, they don't stack on top of each other, so each health pack is an individual slot in the management screen. So inventory management can be a bit of an issue, especially at the higher difficulties, I reckon, as well. You can upgrade this in the skill tree to hold more things, which I did that the second that I realized it was an option. I spoke in the impressions video that I didn't even realize that I had a proper skills and upgrade system until many hours into the playthrough, because apparently I'm a smooth brain and I thought I only had unlocked the electric move only for the glove. So the initial game was actually really difficult for me. And while most of the time you do only fight a few enemies at a time, there is stretches of gameplay with no enemies at all as you're exploring or doing puzzles, and enemies all pack just like one hell of a punch, and they can easily kill you if you let them. You can actually feel free to check out my YouTube shorts of Atomic Heart I also made, which clearly shows me getting my ass beat by robots at the start of the game. That's linked below the like button. But once I realized the full skill tree, I got more health, inventory space, as mentioned. I got more running speed, accuracy when firing from the guns, like hip firing, more healing when using healing items, less damage taken, very basic skill tree stuff. I unlocked more powers instead of just having the electric one. My first one I unlocked was telekinesis, which was just my absolute go-to glove power. This thing was broken. Like, an upgraded telekinesis power lets you literally pick up any enemy and any boss of the entire game. Hover them in the air, shoot them, drop them for more damage, and just immobilize them. It was so much fun, and it recharged really fast as well for how powerful and diverse the skill was. I did not encounter a single situation or type of boss in the entire game, or enemy, that telekinesis wasn't like super strong or helped in some way. I absolutely recommend it if you ever have to try it. So combat was quite fun for me. Like, I enjoyed the push and pull of using ranged guns, using close ranged melee weapons to dispatch the enemies. One negative is I wish there was maybe some form of like an execution or a finisher type move that could have been really cool on some of the elite style enemies, maybe like ripping them apart in a special way or something. Hopefully that's like added in the sequel. The enemy variety was mostly fine, I guess. Like, it wasn't like super impressive and it wasn't overly poor either. You had your classic human style robots that came in like white and black variants. You had like little wood chopping machines in the open world. You had flying ones that can zap you, massive crusher ball bosses. You had organic enemies called mutants that had been like infected by something, which is kind of like the zombies version in this game. You even had like a pair of dancer assassin robots at the end that were just far too sexual for no reason, but I would happily let them step on me, so that's totally fine. I do think the game could have benefited from a little bit more enemy variety, though, at least in terms of the end game enemies, which you don't see much of in the main facilities and underground bunker locations. I think spreading them out more would have been more of a welcome change, especially as your powers and your skills and your guns grow into the later stages of the game. At the end of my impressions video, I did mention that there was an open world section, so I'll touch on that now. The first few hours of the game is like very solo corridor based. It's pretty tense actually, very Bioshock-like. It almost had like a small horror vibe to it. The open world section, however, was a much bigger part of the game than I thought that would be. Not only are they just massive in scope, you can even drive like cars around to go from point to point because the locations are so large. There's tons of secrets, audio logs, enemies, loot, puzzles in the open world. I really enjoyed it a lot. Looting just like abandoned houses and hotels and stations, seeing all the bodies that the machines have murdered, listening to audio logs to piece together what happened before. I love this part of the game. I did. But there is some things I didn't love, which I'll get to. It helps that the game was also kind of based solely in the daytime, because the game is just like a truly visual, gorgeous treat to look at. So having the bright sunlight and everything just like lit up, it looked fantastic. But now that I think about it, having a small, I think day-night or day-night cycle maybe would have helped the game more, especially for some robots, maybe like robots that are only available at nighttime and some are only available at daytime could have been really cool. Especially because of how hard the combat can be and how easy you can die. I think this would have helped to balance it a bit more. This might have also helped the stealth mechanics in the game, because yes, I mentioned in the impressions video there is stealth, but 99% of the time, literally, it is completely ineffective and useless. Like, yes, you can sneak. Yes, you can get behind and like kill or disable a robot with a unique takedown, sometimes using a QTE, but because the whole game is based in daylight, enemies can see you from so far away. And the open world section doesn't help when enemies can be around every corner in all directions. I think a nighttime cycle could have really helped boost the stealth system, where maybe the enemies were just more dangerous and visibility was more poor. But I mean, the whole thing needs to be overhauled anyway to be effective regardless, and hopeful sequel. The open world also had a unique detection system called Hawk Security, I think. So if you're spotted by these little cameras and you don't shoot them down or disable them quickly enough, they raise your alert level. Kind of like a GTA game or something, I suppose. And the robots get sent to your location and it becomes very difficult very quickly as you're swarmed with enemies. These cameras are everywhere in the main open world places. There is some in some of the linear levels underground, but that's mostly like a passing thing. It doesn't really affect much. The issue with this system ties into another open world system, which is infinite spawning robots. There is a type of machine that spawns new robots. They fly out like repair robots. They fly out, they repair anything you've killed. And I mean anything and everything that you have killed. There is nothing in the open world that can stay permanently dead if there is cameras or these little machine breeding hub things around in the vicinity. This quickly became a super annoying mechanic for exploring, looting, combat, resource management, you name it. Like, I like the idea of a security system and alert level. I think that's fine in concept, but in practice, I think this was like way overtuned. All the cameras you destroy, every single robot or enemy you can kill gets revived in seconds to minutes, which means extensively, it is absolutely pointless to kill anything in the open world that is not in your direct main path as you move from quest to quest location, as they'll all just be revived, and basically all of your efforts and resources will just go to complete waste. It was definitely one of the more annoying things about this game was these two mechanics doubling up on each other, especially because there is no permanent way on the player side to ever disable these like breeding robots things. Like they can't be destroyed either. On higher difficulties, I can just see this being an absolute nightmare to deal with, trying to traverse the open world sections of the game, especially once you defeat a robot. Especially because once you defeat a robot the first time, it won't drop loot again if it's been revived. And you can't even farm them for resources. You can farm the little flying ones that go around and repair everything that you've killed, but like a single electricity glove zap can kill most of them, which I did actually a few times. I just farmed a few of those spots, but everything else that you kill in the game, you can't farm again once they've been revived. Last thing I'll touch on about the open world, which I mentioned earlier in the video actually, I just didn't get enough time to explore it due to playing the game on a Game Pass time limit. There is a lot of secrets to find and like a huge number of hidden and side locations to explore that all results in just new weapons, new schematics, upgrades for your arsenal, unique puzzles that I only found in some of these side locations or enemies. Like, I really wish I had more personal time prior to this game leaving Game Pass. I would have loved to dive more into these secret areas. I did do a couple of them though, just to get an idea of what they are, especially just to get some vital upgrades for some of the weapons that I was currently using. But I can see probably like another 5 to 10 hours worth of exploring if you wanted to do everything on the map and do all of these locations, like if you enjoy the time that you're spending in the game. What's nice about them lastly is they also tell you what upgrades or schematics you can find in all these like secret side locations prior to doing them. So if you were like me and you were hunting down like a very specific upgrade for one of the few weapons that you're using, you can hover over the map or you can look in the inventory and click on the upgrade and it'll actually pop up and tell you where you can find it at the end of what like little dungeon area. So this just made everything so much more handy. Like the idea of looking over a giant open world map and exploring each and every side location and facility for a very specific upgrade to a gun sounds like hell. So I thank them for making this easier. I'm very much appreciate that quality of life. Finally, story, characters. Time to talk about them a little bit and kind of like my love and hate relationship with them. First off, your main character, going back to the start, Major Sergey, P3 for the code name. I did not like him for the first maybe 1/4 to half of the game. I mentioned in the impressions video that he was starting to grow on me, and that is true. It's just he had a very blunt, he was very rude, he's a very unapproachable personality. Again, it grew on me more as mentioned, but like it took a while for me to like him, I'm not gonna lie, and I was curious to know more about him in the end and spend more time with him, especially once his past gets revealed a bit more and like who he was. But he's a very typical soldier guy, war veteran. He's got issues, he does what he's told, he doesn't question things, which we'll touch on again in a minute for sure. He treats everyone around him like shit, no offense, but like just not the best main character. But what balanced him out though, however, was your glove companion, Charles. I think he was my favorite character in the game. What starts as like a very basic AI glove that remarks on anything and sounds like a very by the books in terms of what you want out of an AI companion to be, like just gives you information, he helps you with your objectives. He really grew into his own personality by the end. You're like basically friends with him, you help each other out, he starts to make his own jokes, he has his own unique takes and perspective on what is unfolding around you. I think one of the greatest strengths of Charles was his pushback on P3 and trying to help him understand that not everything going on is exactly what it seems to be, and P3 is extremely stubborn in terms of seeing the truth and trying to think outside the box, which people make fun of him in the game. The majority of the game makes you feel like P3 is just a dumb soldier man who doesn't question orders, and Charles helps you open your eyes to this over the course of the game. He asks you a ton of open-ended questions as to why you're not questioning what's going on. It gets to a point where as the story was getting fairly predictable of kind of like what's happening, it's kind of hard not to see Sezhnov that might be a little bit of a bad guy and he's not telling you all of the truth as the player. I found it incredibly obvious when things were worse than expected and people were evil, but P3 was hilariously naive in just wanting to believe that his boss was the good guy, he could do no wrong, it's all for the good of the country and the world, and he'll never hide anything from you. And Charles helped balance that out by asking you all the time why not and why you're not questioning these things. As for other characters, there weren't actually that many other characters in the game, at least human ones at least. There was a hilarious machine AI that was extremely sexual towards P3, which was the upgrade machine that you use all throughout the game. It got a little much, but it was just so over the top. Look, I'll just play a small clip and you can see for yourself what I mean.
Oh, what a stud! I can't get enough. Jocks, let tie you to the bed, baby. No need to fight back, sugar. You're gonna love this.
Don't let her bind your arms.
Can't you see I'm trying? Open to suggestions!
Bring me to her sensor manipulator, quick!
How titillating. Rebellious dominant men really turn me on.
Oh, I'll turn you on, all right. Just let me at you.
What a brute! Oh, I love tough guys. I'm on fire.
Granny Xena, which is like an old granny that flies around on a massive mechanical house with an army full of weapons. She's a really badass character. You only speak to her a few times though. I wish that she was more important or played a little bit of a bigger role. Although at the end of the game, you do find out she's actually your mother-in-law because you were married to her daughter once before she was killed in action, once you've got some of the memories back. Your boss, Sezhnov, the person that you work for, the person that called you in to help clean up this mess, he was like fine, I guess. He's like a very fairly typical fancy talking scientist who wants to usher in a new age for the world and plays the I'm smarter than everyone act card. So he's definitely made out to be like a villain-esque like person by the end, or at least until you're betrayed by Charles, which we'll get to. Speaking of though, the final stretch of the game is where I think the story really got more interesting to me, like the twists of the fact that you had your memory wiped and you've actually been controlled by Sezhnov in limbo. You did have a wife, which is now dead, and she's actually been like semi-reincarnated into the twin dancer robots, which is Sezhnov's bodyguards, like all of her combat skills and stuff. Your glove, Charles, isn't just like a standard AI helper. He's actually one of the scientists who used to work with Sezhnov and was killed and like mind transferred into a glove or something, who at the very final scene of the game, Charles actually betrays you and he fuses with this red polymer substance that can absorb things in human bodies and goes off to like, I don't know, destroy the world and take control of all robots and humankind because The collective initiative that Sezhnov has created actually allows people to control humans who have the AI tech inside their heads, making them mindless puppets, which totally threw me off because I really love Charles, and at the very last second it's actually, I was the bad guy all along. I'm like, what the fuck? The game ends on like a cliffhanger, Sezhnov's dead, Charles escapes. It's funny because there's actually 2 endings to the game. Right before you confront your boss, you get to choose to opt out of the final fight, which means you actually just in a cutscene, you destroy Charles and you literally just disappear. And Sezhnov launches the collective program successfully, and one of the DLCs actually follow that ending. And the other DLC is the normal ending, which is where you actually fight to the end and follows a story where you confront your boss and Charles goes away. Just a shame, like I mentioned though at the start of the video, which I won't be able to play them now because Atomic Heart isn't on Game Pass anymore, which is a shame. Overall though, pretty happy with that. Like Atomic Heart, as stated numerous times, I really enjoyed my 20 hours with it. I'm glad I didn't listen to the angry Twitter sphere bubble, and I gave it a fair shot, and I have my own opinions in the end, and I wish I had more time to enjoy the world of Atomic Heart. There's definitely some things that could be improved, as throughout the video I've mentioned, but I think it's a solid FPS game. It's well worth my time for free on Game Pass. I'm happy I gave it a chance. I think if you like the BioShock series, it's got a lot of things that might remind you of those games especially. And I think if you ever see it on sale for cheap or another subscription service, if you like the sound of what I've described across 2 videos and a YouTube Shorts by now, give it a chance. You might actually like it more than you think. And that's pretty much the video. So remember to leave a like if you enjoyed listening to me ramble about Atomic Heart for a few videos by now. Thanks to all of those that stopped by and listened, especially to the end. Comment down below if you're interested in Atomic Heart or you've maybe tried it before. Subscribe if you're new. I upload videos and games I play. Sometimes. Maybe. Anyway, hope you guys are having a fan-freaking-tastic rest of the day. And as always, my name is Zeno, and you guys take care now.
What in the actual living fuck is this?